These are my Bundesliga Game Week 13 predictions and betting tips. Guys, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do. Without further ado, let's jump straight in to that first prediction. First up, we got Darmstadt taking on Cologne. Now, Darmstadt are coming off a 1-1 draw against Freiburg. Darmstadt went up early and then really just tried to park the bus. Freiburg were definitely the better side, but just couldn't break through that Darmstadt defense for one reason or another. They couldn't finish it off. Darmstadt currently sit 15th and they are winless in their last 5. They're coming up against Cologne, who sit bottom of the table in 18th, still only one win this season, but they are coming off quite a good performance, to be honest with you. 1-0 loss to Bayern Munich in a game that Bayern obviously dominated, but Cologne did very, very well to keep them just to 1 goal, and I think they'll take lots out of that game. Bearing that in mind, I still think Darmstadt at home are going to have too much for Cologne. So I'm going for a 2-1 Darmstadt win. My betting tip is Darmstadt to win or draw. Next up, we got Bochum taking on Wolfsburg. Now, Bochum are coming off a 0-0 draw against Heidenheim. Just two teams that kind of cancelled each other out. The total XG of the entire game was only 1, so not many opportunities for either side. But Bochum, they sit 14th. They're actually in some decent form, unbeaten in their last 4 games. I think they will feel confident going into this one at home against Wolfsburg, who surprisingly are coming off a very, very big 2-1 win over Leipzig. Now, don't get it wrong, Leipzig did dominate the game, but Wolfsburg were just so clinical in front of goal and managed to keep Leipzig out for long enough and snatch a much-needed win, because that broke their winless run and they now sit in 8th. I do think this one will be close. It could go either way, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, and my betting tip is both teams to score. Next up, we got Leipzig taking on Heidenheim. Now, we just spoke about Leipzig 2-1 loss to Wolfsburg in a game they really should have won. They simply just didn't take their chances. And then they found themselves coming up against Manchester City in the Champions League. They had them 2-0 down at halftime and then just couldn't hold them out in that second half, eventually losing that game 3-2. Now, Leipzig still sit 5th. They have lost 2 out of their last 3 games, but they are looking for their 5th straight home win in a row. Heidenheim, we spoke about their 0-0 draw against Bochum, just a very even, boring game. They currently sit 13th and have only won 1 out of their last 5 games. Look, I do think Leipzig are the much better side and should get this done quite comfortably. So for me, I'm going for a 3-0 RB Leipzig win, and my betting tip is Leipzig at a handicap of -1.5. Next up, we got Bayern Munich taking on Union Berlin. Now, we spoke about Bayern's 1-0 win over Cologne. Harry Kane scoring yet another goal in the Bayern Munich colours. And then they're coming off a strange 0-0 draw against Copenhagen in the Champions League. I mean, for them, they've already qualified, so I don't think they're putting too much effort into the Champions League games, but they do have a very, very important one coming up with Manchester United in about a week or 2. But they still sit second, still 2 points behind Bayer Leverkusen, and they're still unbeaten this season. They're coming up against Union Berlin, one of the most out-of-form teams possibly in the world at the moment, but they are coming off a 1-1 draw against Augsburg, and the positive is that they didn't lose that game. They still sit 17th on the table and are still winless in their last 15 games. I think Bayern Munich get this done comfortably. Going for a 3-0 Bayern Munich win, and my betting tip is Bayern Munich at a handicap of -1.5. Next up, we got Gladbach taking on Hoffenheim. Now, Gladbach came up against Dortmund and ended up losing the game 4-2, but they gave away a 2-goal lead in the first half. By halftime, Dortmund were already leading 3-2. So, I mean, their defense not helping them out there at all. They currently sit 11th, and that was their first loss in their last 4 games. So, finding some good form. They're coming up against Hoffenheim, who are having a very, very good season, sitting in 6th, but they've only won 1 out of their last 5. They're coming off a 1-1 draw against Mainz, and Mainz are one of those teams that just haven't been in form this season. So I do think they'll be disappointed that they didn't pull off that win at home. For me, I think this is a very, very tight game. I think there's going to be lots of goals. I'm going for a 2-2 draw, and my betting tip is over 3.5 goals. Next up, we got Stuttgart taking on Werder. Now, Stuttgart over the last 3 weeks have gone through a bit of a topsy-turvy phase, but they looked again at their best when they came up against Frankfurt. A big 2-1 win away from home against Frankfurt. They now sit 3rd, and they will look to get another win here against Werder, coming off a 3-0 loss to Bayer Leverkusen.